So you ended up getting, I don't know whether the term is deplatformed from Patreon or not, but removed from Patreon. And you'd mentioned about it happened with Milo and it happened with some other of your contemporaries. But based on what I saw, the immediate backlash from some other pretty prominent figures online lent a lot of publicity and credence to your side of the story. It certainly seemed. There were quite a few people who came out in support of you, right?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that Patreon didn't even try to really justify it. They can't appeal to their own terms of service when doing this. That's the thing. That's why people talk about it as if it's a political maneuver, because it does appear to be a political maneuver. I mean, I've been on Patreon for 4 years, and they knew what I was like when I joined. I haven't really changed. You know, my political opinions are not the same, but still in the same vein, you know, so I'm not particularly changed there. And I've always been opposed to political correctness, and they're effectively saying, because somewhere else you were politically incorrect, on our platform we're going to get rid of you, even though our terms of service only said it's things that happen on our platform. And Jack Conte literally said, you know, we don't care about what you do on Twitter, we care about what you do on Patreon. It's like, okay, well, that seems fairly cut and dry to me. And so when they're just literally reversing this, then, I mean, how was I to know? I possibly wouldn't have been so unpolitically correct had I known that Patreon were watching every
move you make. Yeah, I mean, you need to be careful what you say when you go to the toilet now, what you what you say when you're out walking the dog. Yeah. I mean, where does the state finish?
It is getting quite Orwellian. I really do think. And no, it's. I mean, like, I never really thought we'd end up living in some kind of like omnipotent panopticon where you can because like anything you've said at any point in time or space can now be found by internet sleuths if it's on the internet, if it's in social media, if it's, you know, correct. I mean, like, look at Cenk Uyghur's old like when he was in college or whatever, his old blog from the 90s that he had up. I mean, it was really rude, you know. It was like young men's rude talk, you know. Yep. And you know, and obviously he's not saying this to women's faces, so it's not like he's going out and saying, hey lady, you've got a nice rack, you know, blah 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 blah. He did kind of sound like Elliot Rodger while he was doing it. But that was all dug up like 20 years later, after he'd disavowed it like 10 years previously, and said, look, this is something I did and I'm not proud of it. But now it doesn't matter. And that got kicked off of the board of the Justice Democrats, a political organization in the US, and him and Carl Kalinske. And so it's just like, it's merciless, absolutely merciless. And it's currently happening to Tulsi Gabbard right now. Like, she was raised in a right-wing Christian anti-gay household, like actively, her dad was an activist against gay rights. And she grew up naturally with a bunch of those opinions, as you would expect. And she, you know, like she going to Congress 6 years ago, but before then she had already changed her mind on the idea of gay rights, which is why she joined the Democrats. And now she's being just grilled for it. Like, I'm seeing that she's such a mild person, and I'm just seeing the worst kind of backlash from the very far left activists who are now like, well, if you were once ever against gay rights, then you know you are forever, and we're just going to treat you like you still hold these opinions.
It's such a
awful.
Yeah, and it's the problem is because everybody wants to have this absolutist approach to people are either bad or good, and the grey area is too grey, and any seceding of ground is you allowing them to proliferate these really terrible ideas. But Sam Harris has a great concept where he talks about the son of a terrorist over in Iraq, and he says this son's 2 years old. So let's imagine the free will that he's got. He's 2 years old, and he's maybe stamping on insects or something like that, and you think, well, is it his fault? And you go, well, no, like look at the people he's around. He's got this aggression, it's really aggressive culture, and blah blah blah. Okay, roll it forward. He's 7 years old and he's at school and he's bullying people. You go, well, is it his fault now? And you go, well, no, it's still probably not his fault. He's got this crazy honor culture, and he's very very highly held within society. Okay, now continue to roll the tape forward. Now he's 15. Now he's 20. Now he's a warlord at 30. Like, where do we stop, or where do we draw the line about understanding people's backgrounds?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good point, and a really good way of laying it out too. At what point do we hold people accountable for the things they believe, and can we allow them to change if they want to? And it seems like the far left at this point,
before they can vote. Like, do you know what I mean? If you're not allowed to vote, you basically, what we're saying to you, what the government is saying to you is your views are not sufficiently well formed for you to be able to contribute to the national discourse.
Yeah, they are.
So how can anything from circa that period be used as a canary in a coal mine for what you're like as a real person? A perfect example.
I don't think you can.
We've got a guy who works for us, a Canadian dude called Iffy, and I was talking to him the other day, and I said, I've just seen that you've changed your Twitter handle. Why have you done that? And he says, man, like, I've had Twitter since I was like 11, and some of the shit that's on there, because he's doing law at the moment, he's like, I just don't want, in 10 years' time, someone to go back and find the shit I was tweeting when I was 12 years old. Yeah. And he's not got dreams of going into fucking Congress, but this is how pervasive the situation is, that people are terrified of having something dredged up.
It's unbelievable. Well, this is why I call it a panopticon, because it really is someone having the ability to see everything about your life if they just care to look. You know, I mean, I tell you what, I am so goddamn glad that social media didn't exist when I was a child.
Same.
I am just, and I'm going to keep my son off of it for as long as I can, because, I mean, it's awful. It's awful, the idea that, like, because I think that this is something that's rarely thought about, but like, I think that people's pasts are generally considered to be in regular society, sort of a part of their private lives. You know, if something bad happened to you in the past, or you did something silly, if you've paid the penance for it, say you went to jail or something, and you know, like 3 years later you're going for a job, you know, it's appropriate to leave that in the past, because otherwise the person can never improve, and they're never given any incentive to improve, and so are currently effectively stuck being a criminal forever. But now the way the internet works is that no, any link can be sent to you and is as fresh as the day it was first printed, you know, first uploaded or whatever, and so it's all there, and it's going to be there forever. And so we're going to have to be really, really careful about what we say in public, I guess. It's
a very nasty trail of breadcrumbs back to a person that you never, or that you no longer are, I suppose. So exactly. Am I right in thinking that Sam Harris has closed his Patreon account now?
He has, yeah. And so is Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin. Yeah.
So how many patrons do you think are combined between them?
I wouldn't even know. It must be a fair number, though.
50,000, probably, maybe something like that.
I honestly don't know. It's got to be a lot, though. It's got to be a lot.
And they are now moving across to.
They're actually setting up their own platform.
Okay,
but I don't know what it's called yet.
Okay.
But I'm obviously going to be looking forward to using it. But I'm also using Subscribestar, which is another platform that was existing before any of this happened. So I think it opened in May last year.
Yep.
And speaking to the cartel nature of Silicon Valley, in fact, the woman who was overseeing the deplatforming of my Patreon account had worked at PayPal for 8 years. And then she was put in charge of Patreon's trust and safety team. And then the day after, I and a bunch of other YouTube content creators went to Subscribestar, which is, there were already content creators on there, obviously. And they'd been operating quite happily for about 6 months. But we went over there, and suddenly PayPal and all of the other sort of Silicon Valley processing firms decided to pull their services from Subscribestar, as if Subscribestar had done something wrong, or as if we were being censored by Silicon Valley itself, or something like that. This is why I really am certain that it's a cartel.
It's so juvenile, isn't it?
It's terrible, yeah. I mean, if Patreon don't want me on, okay, but what's that got to do with Subscribestar? I mean, like, I still have a PayPal account, you know.
Yeah, still buying shit on eBay and
I haven't been deplatformed from PayPal, so why, when I or a bunch of us go to another platform, do PayPal pull out of that platform? It's like, bitch, you still give me money, you know, like, you do that. So why you? So I can only see it as being them protecting the Patreon from the competition, because obviously Subscribestar is not based in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So
has that been reversed now?
What do you mean? Sorry.
The PayPal not accepting payments through
Subscribestar? I believe Subscribestar have figured out a way to get around it by using some other processor, probably outside of the US, to be honest.
Isn't that bizarre that bringing across some of the biggest Patreon or the biggest sort of crowdfunded content creators on the internet was actually one of the worst things, probably operationally, for about 24 hours that could have happened to subscribers.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't think anyone really expected PayPal to say, right, we're not going to do business with you anymore.
Yeah.
Because none of the people who Patreon had done business with had been a problem.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we'd all been on Patreon for years, and Patreon had no problem. And suddenly they're like, oh, that's not politically correct enough. We've got an excuse to get rid of you, and we're not going to let you go to another platform because we're going to get PayPal to. It's very, very strange.
Crazy juvenile. So I want